Okay, well, Fáilte, Dobre Dan, Croeso, welcome to this Féile event on tourism. This is the 5th year that we've done a tourism event in Féile. We've discussed various tourism-related topics. We've looked at music tourism, city tourism, minority languages and tourism, and we've looked at the role of sport in tourism. So this is very much part of the Féile family now, and delighted that we're able to bring this panel to you, an international panel, to talk about tourism. As everybody is aware, that the pandemic has devastated the tourism and hospitality industry on a global basis. Tourism is a key economic driver of Belfast, Northern Ireland, Ireland, and what we hope to present today is the ambitions and visions of 4 eminent tourism leaders about how they see the future of their destination, including, of course, and we're going to kick off with Niall Gibbons talking about Ireland. We're currently recording this in July, and by the time you see it in August, hopefully things will have got even better and improvements made in our ability to travel. It is, after all, basic human right, the ability to travel. So we're going to be discussing the hope and ambitions beyond recovery into the future. Our 4 eminent tourism leaders are drawn from Ireland, Slovenia, Scotland, and the USA. They are Niall Gibbons, the Chief Executive Officer of Tourism Ireland, responsible for the strategy for the promotion of Ireland on a global stage. We have Maja, the Director of the highly respected Slovenian Tourist Board, Tim O'Donoghue, CEO of the Riverwind Foundation and sustainable destination that is in Jackson Hole in Wyoming. And we have Alastair Dobson, businessman and community leader, and driving the recovery of his home, the Isle of Arran, and a leading figure in Scotland's food and drink sector. The title I've selected for this panel is Dweller on the Threshold. It's lyrics that many of you will recognize from the music of Van Morrison. In the foreword to Lit Up Inside, the selected lyrics of Van Morrison, the great Scottish writer Ian Rankin says, "In this song, Dweller on the Threshold, Morrison is talking to all of us, poised throughout our lives between what we've already experienced and what might lay ahead." And how prescient is that when we look at the future of tourism, reflecting on all those great places we've traveled to, the Wild Atlantic Way, Terme Olimia in Slovenia, the island of Arran in Scotland, or Jackson Hole in Wyoming, and our hopes for the future of being able to recover that ability to travel. So I'm not going to dwell on this threshold any longer, and I'm going to ask Niall, please would you share with us your ambitions, your vision for the future of tourism in Ireland, and remind people that it's the whole of Ireland that you'll be talking about.
Thank you very much, Terry, and good afternoon, everybody. Great to have such a distinguished panel of speakers. Looking forward to the conversation today. Congratulations to everybody in Féile. I've been really proud to have been associated with the organisers of Féile for over a decade, and it's great to see it go from strength to strength. And boy, what an interesting world we're living in right now. I came into tourism just after 9/11. I thought I'd seen it all, but by gosh, what an amazing year. My first COVID story started in mid-January when we could feel the pressure in China, where we had actually ramped up our operations there over the last number of years to capitalise on the growing Chinese market coming to mainland Europe. And it was clear that something was happening the size and scale which we really couldn't have anticipated at that time. But we had to scale back operations. We had to postpone what would have been the biggest sales mission from the island of Ireland to mainland China in all our history, with a really bright future. And we moved into February then, and it was clear across the European network, with talking to some of the low-fare airlines, that there was definitely an impact on demand. We were starting to see murmurings of no-shows at airports, cancellations, but nothing prepared us for the 12th of March when we were over in Washington, D.C., with the Taoiseach and Northern Ireland leaders as well, at what should have been a major celebration of Irishness in the White House in Washington, D.C., and the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which got postponed in New York. And we saw the unthinkable. Our industry unraveling really in the space of 2 or 3 weeks and completely closing. So it really was something that brought home a chapter in our history that we never thought really was possible or never thought would happen. And it really brought to the forefront questions that were unparalleled, because we have been through crises before, terrorist crises in different countries, foot and mouth, 9/11, and we managed to get through these by altering and tweaking our strategy, but never have we been really presented with such a set of fundamental circumstances as to, how do we now start to move forward. The questions we really generated in some conversations revolved: how does the brand continue to speak? Who is responsible for the visibility and audibility of Ireland on the global stage? What is it that people are looking to hear? What are the right questions to be asking? The month of April was an amazing month because everyone got into lockdown mode. Everyone was very scared, and people were wondering what the future was going to bring. Where was tourism going to fit into that? And what I thought interesting looking back over the last number of months was really the extent to which sometimes we leave arts and culture in the shade, so to speak, in the push for commercial gain. And I think talking to some of our artists and people in the cultural space, it really brought that space to life, certainly for me. And the first thing that we did in Tourism Ireland was we obviously didn't do any paid marketing activity, but we realized that we have an amazing shop window for the world that we've built over the last 10 years. We have one of the biggest digital platforms in the tourism space. We're the 4th largest agency on Facebook, with over 1 million fans. That's our 4.5 million fans, I should say. And between all our media platforms, you have over 5 million fans with 200 followers each. So we realized that if we could reach out and touch them in some way, we could reach an audience up to 1 billion people. And we realized there's a lot of cultural content that didn't have venues to play in. So it was just an interesting coming together of that tourism, arts and culture space that allowed us to broadcast some really interesting, innovative material that kept a conversation going about Ireland. And it's still going right now in July. We've had some terrific broadcasts from cultural venues around Ireland. But what's more interesting is the conversation that it's generating in many countries. It's got people talking about Ireland. It's kept Ireland front of mind. We've been able to work with some studios like Walt Disney when they released Artemis Fowl, for example, which is an Irish story written by Owen Colfer. Also the program Normal People, a production done at the BBC and RTE, where we were able to utilize the characters and the unique selling points of Dublin and Sligo. And again, to be able to bring broadcast media to the world through our channels, really at a very low cost as well. I'm just going to give you an example of how we managed to tap into the emotions of what people are feeling, making them feel good, really, about what it was that Ireland had to offer. With this little video, if I can pull it up now. But I mean, I'll come back to that if you don't mind, Terry. But I mean, basically, we produced a series of videos that really got conversations going about Ireland. We realized that for each video is sometimes generating 20,000 comments per broadcast, which was, again, very, very positive for us. As we moved to the month of April, then we found that people started to come out of lockdown. It was clear from monitoring social media, there were pictures of cuddly animals walking down empty streets and cities, that people have started to think about traveling again, and they're now getting to grips about where am I going to go, what is it that I'm looking for. And for Tourism Ireland then, it was about having a conversation about, well, what are the really key important components for moving the agenda forwards, for building a sense of hope for the future for our industry, for the 325,000 people across the island of Ireland who depend on tourism for their livelihoods. And we really broke it down to 3 key things. There are lots of other small things, by the way, but the 3 key things were: what is it that the customer is saying in this new world that we're moving into? What is it that's changed in the consumer's mindset? Secondly, as an island nation, air and sea access is absolutely vital. If you can't swim, it's the only way to get here. And 85% of people come by air. So where are the airlines in all of this? How do we get them flying again? And thirdly, our industry, which, remember, there are a small number of big companies like Ryanair or Lingus who we've got good relationships with, but tourism in Ireland is made up of over 20,000 mom and pop style enterprises who don't have the capacity to do things like risk management, who don't have the capacity to build big, sophisticated business plans. It's really a matter of how do I get back out into the marketplace, where for some of them, like, they were dependent on 80-90% of their business for overseas visitors. So bringing those 3 areas together was really about how we were looking to start to shape the future. And it really was about how do we sort of restart, rebuild, redesign. And we didn't put timescales on this because it's too early to put timescales on this. We don't know yet whether there's going to be a second wave or even a third wave. But we do know that we have to be ready to talk to our people out in the international world with the message that resonates. So on the consumer side, what we did was we've gone out to the marketplace, we did a tender very quickly, and we have research now out in our top 10 markets. We have done 2 ways of COVID tracker, top line research in our top 4 markets, which are Great Britain, the United States, France, Germany. And really what that's just asking, it's a dipstick type research to see how people are feeling, what has changed in their lives over the last while, how they're feeling economically, how are they feeling emotionally, what's their appetite to travel. And that top line research is sort of saying to us that, people are interested in traveling, but there's no major rush at the moment. Obviously, the early adopters are more likely to be younger people. People are more likely to probably take risks to some extent. But obviously, people at the older age of the spectrum are more cautious given the nature of COVID itself. There are people who regard Ireland as a very safe destination. That's very reassuring. So Ireland is well positioned when the time is right. But of course, the question is, how prepared are local communities in Ireland in terms of being ready for international tourists when they come from countries that might have had poor records when it comes to COVID-19? I think these are the risks and these are the conversations that we're trying to work out at the moment as well. Another big issue out there in the consumer mindset as well is quarantine. I mean, if I have to come to a destination and self-isolate for 14 days, there's not much point really in coming on your holidays. On the other hand, you've got the air and sea providers who've got big businesses that need to survive. And Ireland's very fortunate to have 2 very big carriers, Ryanair and Aer Lingus, who are in good, profitable, steady shape. And we've seen the risks for other airlines out there around the globe. For example, the United States providing $50 billion worth of support for their airlines. Lufthansa getting a $9 billion payout from the European Commission. KLM, Air France and Alitalia, similar sizes of bailouts too. But for our airlines, there is no bailout. They are privately owned. And it's important for them to be able to get back in the sky in a safe way that reassures customers that you can go from A to B, and we reassure you that you can travel safely. I think we're still in that space at the moment. It's fair to say, from my work on the Aviation Recovery Task Force down here, which reported last Friday, a plane is actually one of the safest ways to travel. The air is actually, the air quality is equivalent to what you'll get in an operating theatre. But of course, for the customer, it's all the touch points in between then. It's baggage handling. It's, how many stages you go through at the airport, what the queues are going to be like. Someone mentioned to me if you have 2 meters social distancing at an A380, the queue will be 1.2 kilometers long, not too conducive for long haul travel. But these are the questions that are going through the mindset of the consumer right now. We've just started to do our deep dive work into our top 10 market. And it's quite interesting. We just got our results from Britain yesterday, and there's no major surprises in there. But what it is saying is that people are looking for comfort. People have been rocked over the last sort of 4 or 5 months, and they're looking for comfort, they're looking for security, they're looking to be reassured. And certainly in the short term, what we're looking at and what we're seeing on the ground here across the whole island of Ireland, a very similar picture, that if you're operating a self-catering business in a remote location, probably by the sea, you'll be booked out for the summer months. If you're operating a caravan and camping site near the sea, you'll be doing very, very well. However, hotels are certainly struggling right now. For example, in Dublin at the moment, hotel occupancy for July is running at about 12%. For August is about 11%. Now that'll be unthinkable in a typical year when it'll be up around 96%. So you can see everything's been thrown on its head completely by this crisis. And again, drawing a huge amount of uncertainty there where we are at the moment. The third part of the equation for us on the industry side is that a lot of our small businesses have been decimated and will not have the resource to get out into the international marketplace when the right time comes. And we don't know for certain when that is right now in the middle of July. But take, for example, World Travel Market, one of the biggest and most important travel trade fairs in the world, happening in early November. Will we be there? I certainly hope so, and we'll have great support, no doubt, from the industry. But they will need the support of the governments north and south to be able to get out, because every other country will be out fighting for business, which will be returning slowly. And we all know share of voice is really important in the international marketplace, and I think working together as well. And that's probably one of my final points of hope to some extent. But when you think what this island has come through in relation to tourism, I think one of the great stories of tourism across the island of Ireland has been the peace process and what's been able to happen since 1998, when Tourism Ireland was established to carry out the functions previously done separately by Board Fáilte and the Northern Ireland Tourist Board. And many people have asked me over the last number of months, is this the end of the road for Irish tourism? And I said, absolutely not. There's actually a 250-year history and tradition of Irish hospitality, and you don't lose that in one season by wearing a mask. So I think we have to give reassurance to our customers. We have to make sure they have a great time. And what our research is also telling us that despite sort of the harshness and the difficulty of lockdown, people actually have enjoyed certain aspects of lockdown, reconnecting with their family, taking a little bit of time out have been good for them. But what they are looking for now is joy in life, so to speak, and they're looking for fun, and they're looking to do it in a safe manner. And I think that's going to dictate probably consumer sentiment, certainly for the next 6 to 12 months. And who knows where we go after that. I think the key thing is that we have to keep our finger on the pulse in relation to what the trends are. We have to know who our customers are. We have to work really closely with the industry so that the promise that people like Tourism Ireland make in the international marketplace can be met by the industry here on the ground. And it's great to see the collaboration, between Fáilte Ireland, Tourism Northern Ireland in developing their safety charters, for example, which will go down really well with customers. The capacity for ourselves to keep in contact with the travel trade and international media, because all of those, constituent parts of the industry will be vital for getting the Ireland story out there when the time is right. So look, I finish on a message of hope. Tough times, there's no question about it. For people running small businesses, it's really, really tough. And but look, we're listening to all the stories out there that we possibly can. We give every bit of support that we possibly can. There's no doubt that one thing I've seen from all the conversations I've had over the last number of months, Ireland is right up there in terms of the consideration set. It's right in the top tier. We've benchmarked ourselves against other countries in our research over the last number of months. And as well as one of the encouraging takeouts of the last while is that despite all the difficulties are there, Ireland will be there to welcome our customers with open arms when the time is right, subject to social distancing, of course, but we will be there metaphorically to welcome all our customers with open arms. And I've no doubt that people on the ground will be ready to do that too. So look, Terry, great to be here. I'm going to try and get that video up again maybe later on if I can, because it really did strike a chord with our international audience when we played it around the globe. We got great traction, and it's called I Will Return. And that's what will be happening to Irish tourism in the months and years ahead. So thanks for having me here, and delighted to participate in the conversation in the next while.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Niall. Thanks for setting the tone so well. And can I suggest that we show the video right at the end? I think it would be a really fitting end to this panel, that bit of uplift at the end. And I think this point you're making about never before in the history of tourism has there been a better time to look to collaboration. And this working together to get us out of it, stronger together mantra becomes hugely important. I'm sure many of the things you were reflecting on were similar to the experiences of you, Maja, in Slovenia, and I saw you nodding several times during Niall's talk. Tell us about your journey and how you're seeing the future for Slovenia.
Well, hello to everyone, and thank you, Terry, for inviting me to share the information about Slovenia and about our activities in these difficult times. But maybe just a few words about Slovenia first, and let me share my presentation. Well, Slovenia is a country located in the heart of Europe and borders Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Croatia. It is the only country in Europe where 4 distinct geographical worlds meet: the Alps, the Mediterranean, the Karst, and the Pannonian Plain. And it is also the only country in the world with the word love in its name, and there is a reason behind. So I will talk about situation in Slovenia in times of COVID, about our green project, and about our route to recovery. Well, tourism, as we all know, is facing its greatest crisis ever. All tourist destinations closed down overnight practically, and after half a year we are still facing the increase of COVID cases. But the easing of restrictions these weeks gives us some optimism. Slovenia opened the borders for the citizens from most of our key markets, but we also closed borders for some of them again. Our regulations for opening the borders are quite strict. Anyhow, we are seeing now the slow increase in demand from key markets like Italy, Austria, and so on. But however, uncertainty remains. The recovery will take time, we know that, especially for the tourism sector, and will begin only after a complete containment of the virus. But until then, tourists and providers will be very cautious because there might be another wave of the epidemic, and then again the measures will be needed. So I think we'll be facing a period now with a strong probability of spikes and waves, which we have to manage very, very carefully and be very flexible. Also in Slovenian tourism, we expect a huge drop in international arrivals, about 60%. Decline will be partly mitigated by the growth of domestic tourism, which is being encouraged with the promotional campaign called My Slovenia, with the governmental measure of vouchers for residents, and with the implementation of the safety standards Green and Safe. And at the moment, accommodations are quite well booked for the summer holidays by domestic guests. We are expecting a 50% increase of domestic guests in the second half of the year. But the situation is really very, very tough for the industry. Tourist companies will have additional costs implementing all those safety measures, and at the same time, the volume of travel will increase very slowly. So we can say that COVID is a game changer and also a great learning experience, but very, very expensive one. I think we all agree. Now let me explain our Slovenian green projects. In Slovenia, green is really a part of our identity, and sustainability is at the core of our tourism activities. The vision is Slovenia as a global green boutique destination for discerning guests, and this orientation towards sustainability serves now as a good basis from which to regain the trust of tourists. And here is our philosophy. Slovenia is green, acts green, and also promotes green. The STB has pledged itself to sustainable development more than 10 years ago now. In 2014, we developed the Green Scheme of Slovenia Tourism. This is a national certification program that serves as a tool for the development of sustainable tourism. This scheme covers two levels, destinations and tourism providers. The number of members is growing constantly. I'm very happy about it. There are currently more than 100 awarded with the Slovenian Green label now. Our efforts brought results. Slovenia was named the first green country in the world, and our goal is 100% Green Slovenia, meaning we would like to include all leading tourist destinations in the country in the green scheme and have them adopt sustainable practices in tourism. Sustainable gastronomy is also an important area of our green endeavors. The main advantages of Slovenia in this field are local ingredients, spectacular environment, and sustainable production. And to encourage it, we are developing right now green cuisine label also for restaurants. And these efforts have lately been recognized by Michelin. Apart from 6 restaurants being awarded with Michelin stars for the first time, the Michelin Sustainability Award has been awarded to another 6 restaurants in June this year. So we are really very, very enthusiastic about it. But we should keep in mind that tourism is about experiences. So to promote the best experiences Slovenia has to offer, we have developed the brand Slovenia Unique Experiences that distinguishes local and authentic experiences of premium quality. And this brand reflects our understanding of new luxury, focusing on an approach that is personal, authentic, and unique. So it goes very well with the new safety measures now. And so all those projects of sustainability serve as a good basis on the road to recovery. And now, as mentioned before, the recovery will be really long. We will have to live with the virus for some time. So soon after the outbreak of the virus, we sat together with our tourism industry, our stakeholders. We discussed different scenarios and have identified 5 pillars or priorities on the road to recovery. Well, the first pillar is about new reality with safety standards. The second pillar is about value reset and new performance indicators. The third about consumer behavior. We heard that before, and new segmentation. This is very important. The fourth pillar is about new business models, and the fifth about the new marketing. And now let's have a brief look at the first pillar, new reality. We all know that tourism will be different now. The most important thing in times of COVID is definitely safety. more emphasis must be paid to hygiene and sanitation and contactless service. So, in Slovenia, together with the Tourism Chamber and Ministry of Economy, we developed the responsible travel standards of Slovenian tourism that are communicated with the green and safe label or brand. They offer an upgrade of our sustainable practices with a new responsibility to local communities and guests. So this is how we maintain and also increase trust in the I Feel Slovenia brand. This label was recognized by the World WTTC and its Safe Travels program. We also developed the manual Responsible Travel Standards to help the industry that highlights hygiene standards, underlines opportunities that Slovenia as the green, active and healthy destination can take advantage of in this new reality, and also provides communication tools under the brand green and safe. Then if we go to the second pillar, we need new performance indicators. So we are about to prepare the new strategy, recovery plan, where health, safety and quality of life should be really top priority. At STB, we already prepared the guidelines to recover early in the March, set up the safety standards, and now we are planning to organize workshops with the industry to discuss the situation and prepare the new strategy. This will be in the end of August, I think. Then the third pillar, we are seeing, of course, the huge change in consumer behavior and values. In this new reality, safety will become priority and trust will become the new currency. Also, before the epidemic, the demand trends were clearly heading in the direction of green tourism. These trends were further enhanced during the crisis. Tourists will prefer authentic experiences, and personalization becomes one of the main elements of the new understanding of luxury. Tourists respect the fact that locals should become the first to benefit from tourism, and if nothing else, this pandemic has reminded us that becoming responsible consumer has become really a necessity. So the concept of local, seasonal, sustainable will have great significance. Some years ago, we defined also 12 target groups of tourists according to their lifestyle. And now, of course, we have to redefine the segmentation, because some tourists won't travel due to financial uncertainty, others due to health concerns because they consider themselves to be in a high-risk group, and some will be insensitive to the pandemic. So we have to keep in mind those new segments and observe the changes in consumer behaviors constantly. And then we have new business models. COVID made us all rethink the way we approach our business. We have to find capacity to reinvent, adapt to the changing environment. The industry will have to make extreme changes to survive, and I think that tourism in general needs a reset. Businesses will have to ensure safety, pay attention to social distancing, hygiene, providing more space for tourists, including innovative redesign of space. And here, new technologies can really be of great support. So companies will have to develop new business models, adjust processes, protocols, operations, and so on. And also destination organizations should focus even more on management. They should reconsider markets and the group of invited guests. So the last pillar is about marketing, building relationships. In these times, it is very, very important to create better relations with customers and local communities, because trust is the key element of the new normality. And digitalization plays an important role. Tourists will want to carry out even more transactions digitally from booking to payment. Digitalization is important for the management of tourist flows and for marketing. We are seeing now the fast development of online B2B platforms, webinars for tour operators and media, online trainings. And at Slovenian Tourist Board, we are really very, very active in all those areas. And then domestic market seems to be priority in this time. We have designed the domestic market campaign called The Time Is Now, My Slovenia. And I'm very pleased that all stakeholders took part in the campaign. So if I may sum up, the situation in tourism is extremely difficult because we have faced and are still faced with travel restrictions. Uncertainty continues. We don't have many answers. But we have to create different scenarios, different plans, and be very flexible. For NTOs, it's very important to lead the process of recovery together with the Ministry of Government or government, I believe or hope that the measures will help the industry to recover and that tourism will emerge from the crisis even more sustainable and resilient. So, thank you.
Maja, thank you very much indeed. I think all our listeners and viewers will realize that the reason we have Ireland and Slovenia on this panel is because they're clearly leading the way we need to rethink tourism. I've got one question to ask of the two of you. It's about this relationship between the tourist and the community. And, you know, we're all predicting that there's going to be a new relationship having to emerge where both are trusting each other. How are you seeing this being exhibited within destinations within your countries? Niall, you know, how are you beginning to see this happen and change the way people are thinking about this relationship?
First of all, congratulations to Maja. I thought it was a terrific presentation. I think Ireland could learn a lot from Slovenia on sustainability and in its destination work. But in relation to Ireland, I think it's really important to realise that, you know, in a pre-COVID world, we saw about 11.2 million people visit the island of Ireland. Big numbers, uneven distribution. But now with those numbers gone, I think people have a better sense of the importance of tourism and what it means to local communities. And when we talk about sustainability, sometimes it gets mixed up with, you know, an environmental conversation. But really for us, what tourism is about sustaining local communities. Sustaining local communities all year long. I mean, these are communities who made their living through immigration only 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, have never known really what it's like to have businesses for 12 months long of the year, so to speak. So for many, you know, they've worked their way from 4 weeks to 8 weeks out to 12 weeks. And the benefit of things like the Wild Atlantic Way, using that as an example, is that it's not just about the marketing, it's actually about getting people in clusters along the Wild Atlantic Way to think about how you can keep people, you know, on the road for longer, so to speak. It's getting the likes of the restaurants, the hotels, the guest houses, B&Bs, you know, to work together, so to speak, as a community to develop that relationship with the customer. That's the bit that delivers the word of mouth that is the best marketing tool of the lot. And I think as we move forward, what we're seeing in communities now at the moment in Ireland is probably a slight fear of great numbers of international tourists returning right now. That's borne out in research, and people need to feel assured that their communities at local level are going to be safe. And this is going to take some time. I mean, this could be a sort of a post-vaccine type situation, you know. So I think the next 12 to 18 months are going to be a very delicate balance, because the last thing you want is a place like Ireland, which is known for its islands of the welcomes and its friendly welcome, being very cautious and concerned in relation to the type of welcome that it might give its visitors. So I think that reassurance and safety bit is going to be at the forefront for the next sort of 6 to 18 months. You know, reassurance from the visitor, reassurance from the community. If that doesn't work, we could be in a spot of bother, particularly in a destination when the quality of the welcome is probably the number one facet that we have on the world stage. So I think that's the big talking point as we speak in Ireland right now.
Okay, Maja, what about from your point of view?
Well, at the moment, the capacities in Slovenia are well booked by domestic tourists because of vouchers for residents, because of intensive promotion, and there is a slow increase in demand of international tourists. We are handling the health situation quite good at the moment, and that is the most important. These days, in July, we have only about 10 cases per day. Slovenia was also the first country, one of the first countries to end epidemic. So for now, everybody is quite okay. Providers got some support, domestic tourists, residents got vouchers to spend holidays in Slovenia. It is important that we make sure that our residents and visitors can be both safe and have a tourism economy. So we are trying to do that with the help of informing visitors and providers about safety standards with the green and safe brand and so on. We worked a lot with communities in the past about the positive effect of tourism. But of course, if the health situation gets worse, the attitude might going to change.
Good. Well, thank you very much indeed. Right, we've heard from the sort of macro level now in terms of how countries are coping with this. I'd like to take us now to the destination level, those relatively small geographic areas where most of us will be spending actually most of our time and most of our money and derive most of our enjoyment from our holidays. So at a time when different places are coming out of lockdown at different paces, I'd like to go to Tim O'Donoghue from Jackson Hole in Wyoming. And as we speak, of course, America is not in a particularly good place, but it's very variable across the states. So Tim, what's it like in Jackson Hole, which I will confess that along with Ireland, Arran and Slovenia is one of my favorite places in the world to be visiting. But tell us what's happening in Jackson Hole.
Yeah, well, first of all, Niall, I want to say that every time I go to Ireland, it's feel like going home, and that's not just ancestry. There is definitely that warm, welcoming feeling whenever I've gone to Ireland. And then Maja, since I first learned about Slovenia and your Destination Green and the World Legacy Awards that your organization won in 2017, I've always wanted to go. So it's not that I don't like where I live. I love where I live, but I'd love to come back to Ireland and go the first time to Slovenia as well. If I may share my screen, I can say a little bit more about what's going on in Jackson Hole. We're Jackson Hole. I want to just give a short description of the nature of Jackson Hole. No pun intended. There's a lot of nature in Jackson Hole. And then I want to give a sense of what kind of lands do we have there and what our current situation, challenges are, and then what our opportunities are for moving forward. So Jackson Hole is actually part of Teton County. Teton County includes also the southern half of Yellowstone National Park. And as you can see, we have the two iconic national parks, a number of national forests, and our national elk refuge that essentially comprise 97% of our land mass in Teton County, which is essentially 4,200 square miles or 1.1 million hectares. And of that remaining 3% of the land, only about 1/3 has been developed or can be developed. So it's there's a lot of nature, and there is a relatively small human presence, which in the time of the pandemic and travel is actually quite an attraction for people who want to go from population centers to somewhere where it's not as populated and feel like they can actually breathe. So our year-round population is 23,500, but in the summer, as you can see, it more than doubles. It's heading toward tripling, actually, with summer visitors. And our annual visitation, you can see in our two national parks, are 3.5 and 4 million people. So, and 90% of that occurs in the months of June through September. And what's our current situation? So we have a phased reopening, and I'm showing our two national parks reopening approach. And as you can see, we're in phase 2 right now, which is that the parks are open. There is some limited accommodations in terms of cabins and campgrounds, but for the most part, the full accommodations actually don't look likely that they're going to occur this summer due to our, if you will, our second wave or continuation of our first wave of coronavirus positive test cases. So we're right now in phase 2. Our key challenges are the compliance with consistency with our public health and safety guidance. The town of Jackson, which is the population center county seat for Teton County, just passed last week an order requiring masking for people that are indoors or who are outdoors and can't social distance, such as waiting lines, going to restaurants and so forth. Our county is trying to pursue the same order with the state of Wyoming. The state of Wyoming is a very conservative state, and we're seeking a waiver with their rules, which don't allow for ordering of masks. And then our federal land management agencies, excuse me, follow national orders. And as you probably all aware, we don't have any national orders for masking, for instance, and other means of protecting the public from one another, actually. We are actually in an interesting perfect storm right now. We have our visitation right now is equal to or greater than this time last year. And that's a function of a couple dynamics. One is the public response in the United States to confinement is to get out of confinement and go vacationing to less populated areas. And in Yellowstone, the greater Yellowstone region is the greatest area of undeveloped wildlands and wildlife in the lower 48 states. So combined with the American tradition of getting into a car and driving to national parks, we're receiving a lot of visitors. And our opening day on May 22nd in Yellowstone National Park and Grand Teton National Park, license plates from 41 of the 50 states showed up, and then that opening day alone. The other dynamic going on is that the national park lodging, as I mentioned, has really been restricted to cabins and the campgrounds. And so the gateway communities, if you will, are the beneficiaries of people being pushed out to find lodging. And so that's why this past weekend, our lodging was at 94% of capacity. And during the week preceding last weekend, it was in the mid 70%. And we're expecting in the weekends heading into the rest of July and August to be near 100% capacity for our lodging. That sounds great, doesn't it? But the reality is that most of our businesses don't have the workers to support that, either because they didn't expect that many visitors, or they're J1 visa workers. Those are the sort of university age students from primarily Eastern Europe that come to the United States to work for the summer are not coming. Many businesses are short-staffed, so what we're seeing is understaffed businesses shorting their operating hours, and in some cases just not reopening because they can't manage it. So we have this interesting perfect storm going on right now. But one of our key challenges, and also an opportunity, is to think beyond the 3 R's of response, recovery, and resiliency to the 4th R, which is realization of the vision that our town and county electeds passed in 2017 to be a world-leading sustainable community and destination. And so part of that process in realizing the vision is really to determine what our vision is for the future of tourism, as well as for our community, and make sure that those two are in equilibrium with one another. So in terms of leveraging opportunities, we just received this past spring EarthCheck certification as a destination, sustainable destination. So we have an opportunity to leverage the standards that the GSTC have created, as well as the management system that we use to, along with the other two sort of dynamics going on with the resources that the Jackson Hole Yellowstone Sustainable Destination has, our partners have, and then the partnership that's been created to reach out to the public, not just the visitors, but also residents on public health guidance. We now have a system in place that didn't exist before. So we need to leverage that too, to do things such as evolving our current economic recovery task force into a destination stewardship council. And in order to do that, we need to increase the diversity of our participants and voices that are being heard, from primarily businesses to include our federal land managers, our local government, environmental and community and civic non-government organizations, and then the general public. So we have actually a very rich opportunity to evolve with creating an organization that will oversee the development and implementation of a destination action plan. One of our challenges right now is that different agencies and governmental units have different recovery and resiliency plan. So we have really an opportunity to coordinate among those entities and move forward together rather than separate government agencies. The other real key opportunity is to integrate sustainability and destination management goals, which we do have quite a few, and then policy strategies, which we have developed to some extent as part of the certification process with EarthCheck, and now we're implementing those policies, and then the metrics, so that we're looking not just at economic recovery, but also realization of the vision we have for the future of tourism in Jackson Hole. So, and I just wanted to provide an example of one of the changes that are occurring with us, and I know this is going to be occurring with organizations like the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, the entities that they accredit to do destination certification, is to really start looking more deeply at public health and safety standards that are included in the overall destination standards for sustainability. And in Jackson Hole, we have a set of public health metrics which we've never included in destination management before, that will be going forward as part of our destination management plan. And here's some examples of those metrics that will be used not just to toggle back and forth what restrictions we need to keep in place to keep the curve as flat as possible with positive test cases for coronavirus, but also to manage us going forward in determining if we do go to the direction of capping the number of visitors, especially in specific areas or sites within our destination, then we're going to need metrics not just that are environmental in nature, not just relative to infrastructure and services, but also specifically for public health and safety. And so you can see this list of different kinds of considerations or indicators that data is being collected for that will help us manage our destination from a public health and safety standpoint. So we expect that to be the case with a lot of destinations around the world who are looking to evolve their destination management to include public health and safety standards and indicators. So that is my quick run through of where we are. With a couple examples of where we're going to hopefully dive deep into evolving ourselves to be more of a sustainable destination, but also a destination is more resilient and ideally realizing the vision for the future of our community, which hopefully will evolve together with our tourism industry in some state of equilibrium. So thank you.
Good, thank you very much, Tim. I mean, a number of things there resonating with what Maja was saying, about the relationship between, where the marketing promise that Niall was talking about is going, and the importance of destinations. And indeed, the World Tourism Organization, that body responsible for the overseeing of tourism on a global basis, has recently articulated that trust will be the new vocabulary, and that destination management will become the most important job in tourism. And I think everybody is reflecting that. Niall, you mentioned in your starting point the fact that we were now inundated with pictures of big cuddly bears and animals walking down high streets. I'm not going to make any comment on Alastair Dobson walking down the street in Brodick on the Isle of Arran, but it sort of sets you up quite neatly, Alastair.
Well, thank you very much, Terry. That's such a kind welcome. I wouldn't expect anything less. What a great group to be involved with, and thanks to the team at Féile for inviting me along. It's a bit of a busman's holiday for me to be presenting in a tourism forum like this. My family, my grandfather is from Donegal originally, walked to Belfast and got a ferry to Scotland when he was about 9 years old to get work. It's always a pleasure. I wish I was there in spirit. I'm there in spirit. I wish I was there in person, but we'll sort that soon. So thanks a lot for the chance to present today. I was specifically asked to give a destination approach to this, so I'll whiz through this and tell you a little bit about the piece of rock in the middle of the Irish Sea that I come from, which is not so far away from Belfast, probably about 70 miles as the crow flies, if that. But it's very much a a from the ground approach to how we're seeing this dreadful time of COVID. And you'll see that some of the themes in here are similar to what you've already seen. And I make no apology for plagiarizing with pride my whole career and finding the best ideas and seeing if we can bring them back and deliver them on the Isle of Arran. So I'm from a food and drink background. I'm a farmer's son. I've worked in different places throughout the world, but I came back to Arran after 10 years away and started manufacturing ice cream on Arran to sell to contacts I'd made all over the food and drink industry and the rest of UK. We're now exporting globally and even to the States. We've got an order going to Texas next week. So it's great to be back exporting. And but we use that food and drink product as a very much keeping an emotional cycle going there. The people who taste our products, wherever they are in the world, they're always wanting to find out the wonderful place it comes from. And by the way, we use the wonderful place we come from unashamedly to market these products, but we don't do it in such a way that we're marketing the product. We market the place. So I never sell a litre of ice cream or a kilo of cheese from Arran. I always sell the place, and that, by the way, that allows us to sell the tourism experience, and we've also got a great body care company in the island, and we firmly believe that Arran is a spa itself, so we're selling that whole emotional experience. So anyway, that's my company. One of my companies is Taste of Arran, which is a collaboration, and it's great to hear collaborations back at the top of the agenda again, because it's when you haven't got a lot, you've got to collaborate. So we've had to collaborate over time to really get our voice heard. And picking up in Niall's bit, it's all about getting a piece of that, getting your voice heard is ever important. So our Taste of Arran company sells, markets and distributes products from artisanal businesses on Arran throughout the globe now. And I'm also a director of Visit Arran, which is our destination management organisation. Anyway, so where the heck is the Isle of Arran? So there we go from a UK and Ireland perspective there. We're sitting right between you both. And as I say, not far away from Belfast. In fact, we're probably as close to Belfast as we are to Edinburgh, which is interesting because I want to come back to that Celtic tourism link that we maybe get a chance to exploit. That's where the Isle of Arran is. We are 15 miles from the Scottish mainland, and our only means of getting to the island is by ferry, so I'll come back to that. Although some people think that we all have our own helicopters, not true, although we have had the chance to ride in them sometimes. That's the Isle of Arran there, 13 miles long by 6 miles wide. Not the biggest island around, but hugely significant island. Sometimes called Scotland in miniature, not because it's got mountains in the north and lowlands in the south, but mostly because of the geological activity that happened in Arran many millions of years ago. In fact, in the north of Arran, there's sandstone that can only be found in New Zealand. So Arran was joined to New Zealand at some point. So it's interesting. It's got 5,000. It's got fantastic outdoors, and is well known for it's not just a great place for people to live, work, and visit. We've got all of the big 5 kind of wildlife species in Arran, including golden eagles, otters, red deer, red squirrels. So animals choose to live here as well. So there's something special going on. It's really exciting to know that self-catering opened up last week, and their hotels are opening tomorrow. And these are really responsible businesses, and we work closely with our communities, which I'll come back to. And we're really looking forward to welcoming guests to Arran and letting them spend time with us. The businesses in Arran were so responsible. We actually closed down our tourism businesses about 4 or 5 days before the official lockdown, because we knew it was happening. But right now, it was a bit of a tsunami. I wasn't in China, but I was in Italy when China started locking down, and I was working in Italy. I was out there plagiarising with pride again, learning from the Italians how to better our ice cream. Why wouldn't you? So we were right there, and eventually I left Italy, and I saw that Milan was getting locked down, and I thought, this is crazy, this can't happen. And then within a couple of weeks, the UK is locking down. But in that period of time, the Isle of Arran had locked down first, because we really understood that we could not be open when there was a crisis coming, because that is not where we wanted to be. We're a place people come to get rid of the crisis, in their lives, the crisis in the just general day-to-day drudgery that they go through. So we just thought, let's get this done quickly, and let's stay safe for when the people want to come back and feel that safe approach. So that's where the Isle of Arran is. Some numbers: we do around 16 million in food and drink from this little rock in the Clyde, the Firth of Clyde. Tourism, 70 million, it's probably pushing 80 last year. Just under 500,000 visitors annually. And we had a sustained success over the number of years building to that number. And this year is just going to be, we'll probably only hit 50% of that number. And but what it has done is given us that chance to reset and really get after this responsible tourism agenda. One big issue we've got is, because people love coming here, house prices are increasing, so our actual population is decreasing because a lot of young people have been leaving. However, we're now building 200 new homes for people who want to come and live and work in Arran, so that's all good news. Everything's about the environment where we're from. It's great to see what's happening in Slovenia. I know there's some great stuff happening in Ireland. I think it's just going to be one of the core brand values that we've all got to look to, both within the food and drink markets and within tourism. And that's something that we're definitely getting after. As I said, here is a ferry coming into Arran. When we started looking at the issues we may have with COVID, we didn't realise that the ferry was going to be our biggest one. It's our own infrastructure linking us to the mainland, and our ferry company had said they were going to reduce the capacity in the ferry while social distancing was in place to 10%. 10% would have meant no recovery of businesses, total breakdown of all infrastructure in the island. It was called a government emergency when we found this out, but the ferry company didn't think it was an issue. So it's an interesting one where a destination approach brought some clarity. Some facts about Visit Arran. Even in a small island like ours, 200 small businesses are involved. Not just the hotels, but right down to the plumbers and the electricians and the taxi drivers. We drive about £60,000 worth, you can read it there yourself, of private money to allow us. And that's, we don't have any members, we just have collaborators. Because membership, everybody will be running the marketing campaigns, everybody will be running the communications, everybody. So we've kind of just asked them to join with us emotionally to get out there and really look after what's important to Arran. It's all about innovation. We're looking at trying to join up a bit more with the rest of our region to ensure that we get a really sustainable regional and national approach to recovery. And responsible tourism is everything. But one of the big things we want to do is to make sure that we continually let our communities and at destination level, but also our governments, continue to understand the importance and relevance of tourism as a community driver as much as an economic driver. But it's all about looking at that win-win-win, and we're looking at how we can manage data to really give us the insights as to what these wins are, so that we can talk about them every day. Some of the stuff we do, our ferry, we've got an information point in the ferry, so that's something we've used to help with the safety messaging at this period as well. We did a destination guide, there's some different stuff there. But one of the things that is really important is we listen to our customers. It's a bit, if you don't take the chance to do an exit survey on a ferry, you're mad. So we should be welcoming in the way in, and on the way back we say, so how did it go? And we get some great information from that. And one of the key important ones for us is that we hear it time and time again. I'll paraphrase, but it goes something like, Arran is a special place. It ain't no theme park. We love it there because it's like spending time in your community. And that's something that we've got to continue to embrace and develop, is that whole emotional connection with the community. We do destination scorecards, a wee trick I've learned from Terry Stevens, so continually benchmarking what everybody thinks of your destination. And of course, never forget to ask the taxi drivers, because if a taxi driver can talk up where you live and where they're driving folk around, you've won a watch, because taxi drivers potentially can be your biggest ambassadors or your biggest detractors. So it's all about the visitor experience for us, and for that visitor experience, we've got to look at the product. Interestingly, a lot of the slides I've seen today have got mountains in them. This is us pretending to be an alpine region, which we're not. This is taken. Arran is a very temperate area. It's washed by the Gulf Stream. We've got more palm trees than pine trees. It's quite an amazing place. But what we do have is a wonderful managed landscape and natural landscape that we commit to all the time. We started up a visitor gifting scheme called the Arran Trust, and it's all about conservation, environment and education, and we want to really use that during the recovery period. What do we have on this island? We've got wonderful outdoors, wonderful indoors, food and drink, heritage. If you can see down the bottom there, there's one of my wee pals, the red squirrels. I can see them out my bedroom window every morning having their breakfast. Beside that, some Neolithic standing stones. People have been coming here for years. We just didn't know they were tourists. And so we want to keep working on this sort of stuff. And bottom left, we were so lucky in one of my own businesses that we reintroduced local milk. The big national farmers cooperative do out of Scotland pretty much. So that's and left Arran farmers with nowhere to sell their milk. So we were making ice cream, but we reintroduced glass bottled milk. But we had to take a big punt in this. So we're now charging double what we did 5 years ago when we stopped processing milk. And we don't even have to bottle it. We sell it through vending machines where everybody comes with a little bottle with the Arran milk logo on it. It's now become a collector's item, the bottle. But the great thing is we've really connected into that local supply chain that's been demanded during COVID. So what we mostly have in Arran is having a great time. And all of this is about welcoming people to our community. And it's all about taking time to have fun and make some real family memories. And that's what we're desperately keen to ensure that people are going to do, because they will remember the first holiday after the COVID crisis. 80% of our guests are returners, so that's something that we've got to keep looking at. And they will want to see some sort of normality in the new normal. So we want to make sure that we've looked after everything that they appreciate, polished it even more, and welcomed them back to make them make these great memories. We've also looked at widening out, and like the Wild Atlantic Way and the North Coast 500, there's some fantastic route development programs out there. Some of them are just route programs for the sake of it. Ours was developed more around, there's 3 fantastic islands in the archipelago that we're part of, the Isle of Arran, the Isle of Bute and the Isle of Cumbria. And there was 2 decent driving routes on the mainland, so we thought, let's join them up as 5, the Gaelic for 5, the Coig, and find ways. So it's not particularly a driving route, it's just, it accentuates the special points of difference of these 5 places, that allows you to drive, cycle, walk, and it also allows us to upsell. And it's really strengthening our voice, which is great. One of the things that we did straight away was when we went into COVID was understand where we were as a destination. We had started a new organisation called the Arran Economic Group, but we ensured that this was before COVID started. Because Arran was such a place for wellness and well-being and recovery and rejuvenation, we thought it was important to have the Arran Medical Group central to any discussions we were having. And what a blessing that was to have the medical guys, the medical team there, part of our thinking. We wanted to develop an Arran economic plan for 2030. So we did. It was called Arran 2030, an island in balance. And the balance was on 2 points with a third pivot point. So it balanced the community and the economy with the environment as the central pivot point for balance. So three things in balance, and it all had to come along at the same time, or you had to mitigate any of the effects of the other. So we were getting on with that, and then COVID hit. So we said, how do we COVID-proof this? So the first thing we wanted to do was talk to our residents and our citizens. So we put an online survey out, and also we had a paper-based one that we took to make sure that all residents, whether they're digitally enabled or not, could respond. So out of just under 5,000, we get 9,900 respondents. We'll look at the quantitative responses and the qualitative responses. This allowed us to be able to absolutely say that we were going to offer a safe welcome to tourists when they came back. We'd be responsible how we did it to keep our community safe, and we'd make sure it was sustainable as it went along. And from this, I was so lucky to be involved by Terry in a group of destination and regional managers throughout the world. It's amazing how much folk will share things when you're all in the deep doo-doo at the same time. So everybody was on their knees, everybody was looking at how they could recover from COVID, and the only thing that was slightly different in time scales was some of these places were recovering slightly early, so we were able to do things differently based on some of the learnings from other areas. And this was something that we really loved, was you're invited. You invite people back to your area, because that, for me, that really became something that was very emotional, because if you invite somebody, there's always a bit of respect both ways, or there should be. There's some parties I've probably been to I won't be invited back, but that was a while ago. So there is mutual respect, and there's a responsibility. But hopefully with my little tip bit there's a little bit of fun as well. So you're invited to come and have an islandy experience, and this was done through the COIG, so it wasn't just islands. It would be, you're invited to take a short break, or you're invited to paddle in the sea, and there's a wee bit of humour there because there's paddling in the sea as well, and there's lots to do. And we think this invited way of not segmenting the audience, apart from saying it was somebody that we would like to invite to come here. There's a new market out there, grandparents taking grandkids away because the parents are too busy trying to get back to work and earn a crust, things like that. There's big opportunities there to invite people to your destination. Anyway, for us, the big part of recovery from a destination is, as the macro of the national tourism organisations, who are all doing a fantastic job, where the touch points are within, bad use of language there, touch points, I need to sanitize that area. But the touch points where you're actually making a difference, we need to stand out from the crowd, not just at a destination level, but as countries and as tourism professionals, as hospitality givers and receivers. We need to make sure it's safe and welcoming, and well-being is guaranteed. For us in Arran, we want to ensure that that fear from the community, which there is still some, is not prevalent. It's genuinely a welcome, and making sure that the guests at Arran are part of our community, responsible, sustainable, an island in balance of community, environment and economy. And we want to increase and add value to the quality of life of the citizens, guests and businesses on this island, because it has been turmoil as it's been everywhere else. But it's all about keeping that emotional connection, and always, and for us, it's not, we're a people business and we're a people island. It's not about hospitality particularly. It's what we like to give what the people are looking for, and we hope that that's going to be a great experience. It's using everything from the water of life to the water in the stream there, making memories, taking time, and just getting out there, enjoying the place. But we have to do it in that safe, responsible and guided manner. And I just want to share quickly with you something that came in there, if you may indulge me, Terry, if I can find it. So this is something we thought. We didn't want to put big stop signs, because everybody knows government guidelines, whatever country you're in. We wanted to try and soften it a little bit. And we've put these, we've put this online, but we've got to every harbour, port of departure, port of arrival, on the ferries. And this was as much a community communication as anything is to say, we are Arran, please be safe, responsible and sustainable. Help us protect our community, because it's something that every guest at Arran respected, because they told us that. They said it's like being part of your community. So nobody would knowingly bring an infection into the island. So this is just a different change in communications that we're trialling, and it went live last week, a soft launch, and now it's been distributed to every business on the island. So there's a very quick quiz through of the Isle of Arran, where we get island time and no time. We'll invite you to come here anytime you'd like, and I'd love to look at that Celtic triangle. Can we do something about inviting the Welsh and the Irish to Scotland and vice versa? I think there's something in that, because you know what, we all got to get, when we get together, it's the best crack ever, and it's always done safely and responsibly. Great, and I hope that that was of value, but that's from our little part of the world, the Isle of Arran.
Well, I mean, the only thing I add to that is, of course, the Celts originated from Middle Central Europe, so there's a reason for Slovenia to join us on that trip as well, because that's where I think we all heralded from originally. I'm conscious that we're getting close to the end of our time, but perhaps I could return to Niall and Maja and say, look, you know, you've heard from two destinations who seem to be doing things interestingly and well, and I'm sure, you know, that there are things you would be taking from what you've heard from Jackson Hole and Arran, and perhaps encouraging your destinations to think about. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, there were so many great ideas, so many interesting things. What I found interesting, I think Tim mentioned, is the need for coordination of different recovery plans of different institutions. That's very important in this phase. Then Alastair stressed the need to listen to consumers and residents. I liked that You Are Invited campaign, very emotional, I think. He also stressed that a lot of the responsibility is in the hands of the visitors, who need to travel responsible. So it is really important to educate those visitors about safety protocol and so on. And also that community should be involved in the planning for the future. So you have the residents then on the same page, and the activities and measures are then more effective, I think.
Thank you. Niall?
Thank you for all those interesting ideas.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. Really interesting to see what other people are doing. I think on Alastair's front, we have our own Arran Islands off the coast of Ireland, and it was very interesting around the time that they were opening up around stage 2, a great concern at the local community, you know, about protecting, you know, the local inhabitants. And I think there's a lot of learnings there, so to speak. So I think you've done a terrific job from that perspective. And the other thing that really struck me was, and it came out in our research, I should have mentioned it earlier on, what our British customers are telling us is that they want to go back to a destination they've been before. They want to feel comfort in the known. And if most of your visitors are repeat visitors and you're inviting them back, I think it puts you in a very strong position when it comes to rebounding from the tourism perspective. Tim, can't wait to see you back in Ireland. Really interesting insights. And a different angle, perhaps, one thing that really stood out was the impact of J1 visas, which are very popular here in Ireland and across Europe. And that J1 visa program has been running for over 50 years, and I know it's been a cornerstone in developing the Irish-American relationship. And it just reminds me that, you know, when people are making central policy decisions on these types of like visa issues, you know, it reaches far beyond into just, you know, people coming into a country. It reaches into the bond that develops to countries over decades, you know, that tourism is really good at. We build links between people, and it starts off with having a great experience in America. I did it myself in the mid-1980s, and it leaves you with a very positive impression of the destination. So hopefully you'll see all those J1s. I'll apply for one myself, Tim, next year and come over to Wyoming.
Okay, I'm going to complete this little circle. Tim, Alastair, any final comments before I try to just bring things together? Tim, what about yourself?
Well, I mean, this may sound esoteric, but it is absolutely true that what we're learning, hopefully we're taking away as societies in a global community, is that we're all connected, that we really need to work together, whether it's within our own countries or between countries. We really do need work together, because that is the reality, is that we're connected. And I think, again, we're stronger together than we are not. And so I know that's very philosophical in nature, not very specific, Terry, but I think that's something that we can't say enough about.
Good, thank you. Alastair?
Yeah, I'd echo that, Tim, as well. And it's been great to be on this panel. And as I say, to anybody that's watching this presentation when it goes out, don't be scared to just grab some of the ideas or use your network as hard as you can, because crisis brings the need to really collaborate and really look at solutions, and you don't have time to hang back. So. And by the way, Niall, I'd love to get back to the Arran Isles. I've been out there a couple of times, so if we get the chance to do that, let's do that sometime. So looking forward to meeting everybody face to face. But let's all collaborate and let's get in behind and push forward and try and help all these great destinations recover safely.
Good, thank you. Well, before we end, Niall, I hope we can end with your video. But before we get to that, can I just invite all of our listeners and viewers to think about how they might be able to contribute to the sort of things they've been listening to. Many of you will be travelers, so think about the responsibility you can bring on your own travels. I'd also like you to think about the talents and the skills that you've got, because one thing is for certain, that the innovation that will be needed in tourism may not be found within the people you see on your screens. We're going to have to reach out to all sorts of new talents and innovative thinkers. So anybody out there listening who's got a good idea, I'm sure, Harry Connolly in West Belfast, Visit West Belfast, Niall down in Dublin leading the marketing. Please, we're going to be very reliant, especially if the J1 visa situation comes in, where we're going to have to reach out and seek new talent. I think all of you who will have been listening and watching would have been making the same notes as I have, that words kept reoccurring. Each of our panelists talked about respect. They talked about innovation. They talked about honesty, authenticity, collaboration, community, and tourists. I think there's a lot of new language that will permeate the way we think about tourism for a long time to come. And I'm going to end with one small anecdote that links Belfast, Jackson Hole, and Scotland before we go to the video. And that is, I once took a learning journey of 15 Scots people to Jackson Hole. And we were in a fabulous place called the Cowboy Bar in the middle of Jackson Hole. And they had a country and western band, and nobody was dancing. And I had the temerity to go up to the band and say, if you play Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl, I guarantee everybody will dance. So they played it, everybody got up dancing. The following night, which was a Saturday night, went back there, the same situation. This time the bar was full of genuine cowboys. And the guy playing the lead guitar said, please do not suggest we play Brown Eyed Girl tonight with this audience in. So look, with that, thank you all. Maja, thank you very much for joining us from wonderful Slovenia. Tim from Jackson Hole in Wyoming. Alastair from Arran. Niall, thank you for everything you're doing for your island of Ireland, and I'm sure the good people of Belfast really respect that work you're doing. Can I wish you all keep well, keep safe, as with all of our listeners and viewers. Thank you all, and I do have a big suggestion. I think the success of this panel means that we ought to take this show on the road. That we gather together in real time and actually take this wisdom to anybody that wants to hear us. And a slight commercial, there's a book coming out in September called Wish You Were Here, and I can guarantee you that Arran, Wild Atlantic Way, Jackson Hole, Slovenia, and Ireland are all in the 50 great destinations in that book. So look, without more to do, thank you so much. Diolch yn fawr, Vala, thank you, Slante. Now, can we end with your video?
I will return into her arms, gently into the fold. to see her waters and her hills and all the beauty she beholds, to feel the earth beneath my feet, the warmth against my face, and be welcomed in at every turn into her kind embrace. But alas, for now I'll have to wait to see my true love's form. But we all know that these green lands have weathered tougher storms. The wandering lanes and rugged cliffs, her fields laced with streams, will still be there after I awake. But for now, they're in my dreams.